What's up, guys? Welcome to the quarantine. I'm your host, Wolf, and today we're going to take a look at Star Trek Fleet Captains by WizKids. You may be familiar with WizKids by their miniatures line similar to the Star Wars X-Wing. They do the Star Trek Attack Wing, which, to hell with what anybody says, they're almost exactly the same game, just the X-Wing miniatures look better. There's minor differences here and there, but it's the same company who made that. Is the game any good? Let's find out. Alright, first and foremost, this is the insert of the box. This is a little different. I did carve all of this out with a knife, mainly because I have this card sleeved and they no longer fit. But if you don't sleeve the cards, all of this fits in the box really, really well. The only other difference is I have paper clips, and I'll explain why. But this is how the game looks when you first get it. You have all the little ships, and anybody who's played the Attack Wing, these are almost the exact same ships, except they're not. They didn't even bother to try to paint these ones. They're also on little HeroClix bases. Let's see if the camera will actually zoom in. My last few videos I used my phone. Now I'm using my webcam. There we go. But see, so it's got the HeroClix base. So, and I'll explain that a little bit later. One thing I'm going to start off by saying is this works really well until you decide to get the base game, or not the base game, the expansions. If you're like me, I'm OCD and want to have everything in one box. So if I bring this over to a friend's house, I only need this. I don't need to buy 10,000 other things. But what are you going to do? So let's set the game up. Alright, this is what Star Trek Fleet Captain looks like when it's fully set up. As you can see, it says my hand here, the game takes up a decent bit of real estate. On top of that, let's hit this up, you're going to have something like that up there as well for your mission cards, the spare location decks, and your encounter deck. So, as usual, I'm not going to explain in depth how to play. I'll give you the kind of general idea. This is a review, not a tutorial. So the way the game works is you and your opponent are going to decide how many points you're going to play. So once you decide, say we're going to play to 10 points. You each have, you get the Federation deck. I really got to get a new camera. You get the Federation deck, and you have the Klingon deck in the base game. The two expansions give you the Dominion and the Romulans, which I plan on buying eventually. And these are your different ships. Now, the reason I have those paper clips in the box are for this reason. Rather than having to pick up the ship and click it on the HeroClix, I have it to where I could just do it. Oh, wrong side. I could just do it on the card. Something that I found on Board Game Geek works really well. That way I can just slide it this way. I don't have to worry about picking my ship up and twisting it, because one thing I'm going to go ahead and point out now, the ships are somewhat fragile. So what you're going to do is you and your opponent are going to flip over your cards, and if you notice on the top right, see if it'll zoom in on that. There we go. Top right, you have your size. And this camera is a piece of crap. I'm sorry. I think from now on I'll just use my phone because that seemed to work really well. But you have your size. So you're going to draw cards from the top until you reach size 10. So in this case, we have the USS Enterprise 1701E, which is my all-time favorite Federation starship, the Sovereign class, which is a size, there we go, size 6. So I got 4 more points left. I'm going to flip this over. I may or may not have stacked these decks. And now I have the USS Sutherland. So that would give me the Sovereign class Enterprise and the USS Sutherland, the dinner plate. And you're going to take those, you're going to put them over here in your deployment zone. And your opponent is going to do the same thing. So, for example, the Klingons get the IKS Tong, the Coronar, the Rotaran, and then the Katang. So my opponent has 4 ships. They're all much smaller than mine, but they're 4 ships. So he gets these, which the Klingon ships look fairly decent. You know, decent amount of detail. Really wish this camera would stop being a piece of crap. Oh well. And he would put those in his deployment zone. And then the opponent would go ahead and put his cards over there. Oh, I have this wrong way. Opponent would put his ship cards over there to keep track of them. I'd put mine over here. And then based on the ship that you have, you're going to draw this many missions. So for the Sutherland, you're going to draw 1 science mission, 1 influence mission, and 2 combat, which totals its size. In Enterprise E, you're going to do 3, 2, and 1 out of the cards that I had shown up there. So you got combat, influence, and what was it? Science. So you're going to draw some of these. I'm not going to actually draw the deck, but you have, stellar research. Make successful level 20 sensors test on a star. Crippling strike. Inflict 2 damage on a single enemy ship in combat during a single turn. Doing 2 damage to a ship at red alert does not count. And then a secret mission. Secret missions stay face down because your missions will be over. Let's change this. Will be over here. So that was a secret mission. This is face up, and this is here. So your opponent knows what you're going after, and you agreed on 10 points. So it's the first person also to 10 victory points wins. So as soon as you you accomplish these, you go ahead and cash them in. You draw from your unique deck, which would be up here. Your unique deck of mission cards. Once you run out, then you get to draw from any of the 3. However, if you do get this game, I recommend a house rule that I've seen on Board Game Geek, where when your deck is out, you just rebuild your deck based on your ships, and then draw from those again. Because influence missions are actually fairly easy to complete, most of the time. Most of the times I've won, I draw a influence card, and it's already finished. So, boom, I score it and win. So just kind of a heads up. And you, of course, would be able to look at this at any time because it's your secret mission. And then the way this game works is your ship has an engine rating. Let me pull these up here. Your ship has different ratings. So when you're attacking, say, for example, the Enterprise E has a 16 on this setting, has a 16 attack. If I was attacking the Katang versus its shields of 4. Basically, it's not possible for him to stop me from doing a point of damage, but we would both roll a die out of this tiny little thing. I hate these small dice, but I can't. For some reason, they're very charming. I have to use them. But you would roll. So I would roll, and your opponent would roll. So the other die is lost in here somewhere. There it is. So I would do 14, or was it 16 plus 6. So what, that's 22. My opponent would roll, and ouch, 4 plus 1, that's 5. So normally I'd do a single damage, and he would go from a clear status into yellow alert, and then he gets to readjust them to any one of these. However, if you do 2 times what they rolled plus their shields and damage, you do 2 damage. If you do 3 times, you do 3 damage and instantly destroy them. Each ship only has 3 hit points. Some of the ships, of course, also have their special little abilities here. There are alternate ones on Board Game Geek, which I'm debating on trying out. However, so far, I've only played this game 4 or 5 times, something like that. I have absolutely loved every game I've played, so it seems fairly balanced. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue on. The way the game works, you have your engine right here. So you have let's focus this. This camera's a piece of crap. Your engine. So let's just say I was set to this setting. So you have your engine test of 10. So you always get 1 free move regardless. Now the camera doesn't want to focus far. Great. But you get your first movement. Come on. There you go. You get your first movement free. It costs you 1 of those 10 points. Once you go into a face-down location, you'd flip it up, make the bottom face you, just in case, because some objectives say that you have to explore so many adjacent areas, so on and so forth. So I would go in here. Now, if we look at these, be warned, these are not perfect hexagons. So, yeah, it's kind of a pain. They don't, like, you'll know if they're not all facing the right direction in the box. But first thing you're going to do is you're going to see the size and an encounter. Come on. Whatever, close enough. Encounter and size. Size is how much additional engine it's going to take to travel out of it, but first you have to roll for an encounter. Come on, you piece of junk. So in this case, it's a 4. So we'd roll a die, and that's a 5. Come on. There we go. That's a 5. But let's just say I rolled a 3. That's within the 1 to 4. So you have to draw an encounter deck or an encounter card from up here, an encounter deck. So in this case, it's triples. And it gets, something from the show. It's persistent encounters. Rapidly reproducing furry tribbles have taken over your ship. Place this encounter card in your cargo or in your ship's cargo, and disable 2 systems of your choice. As long as your ship has tribbles, 2 systems must always be disabled, but you can change them each time when you make a power adjustment. The only way to get rid of the tribbles is the transporter to move the cargo between ships. And so this would just stay with you, and it screws you over. Some of them are really good, some of them are really bad. You can get anything from cascading failure, independent trader. You can have Q in here. There's supernovas. There's all. See, there's Q. We all know what fucking happens when Q shows up on the ship. But you got that, and that's really cool. And it only happens the first time you go in. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them give you victory points. Come on. There we go. Some of them give you victory points, and so on and so forth. But if you don't get an encounter, I only used 1 point to move in here. And remember, your first move to an adjacent is always 1 point. But for me to move out of here, it's 4 more. So I'd go 4. Total 5 that I've used. I now have empty space. If I don't get the encounter, so let's roll, because this is a 1 to 2. I rolled a 4. I don't have an encounter. I still have, 5 points left? So I can move out of this again. And now I'm up here on a Class H planet with a K-type star, status habitable. Installations at this location require 3 additional 3 additional control tokens to build. Is it going to focus? Apparently not. Come on. Apparently not. Sorry. My camera's a piece of crap. I really need to get a better webcam than this one. But anyways, so that's how the whole movement thing works. And then of course you have sensors where you can scan adjacent areas. So I can scan over here. I can look at it without my opponent. So I see that's a D-type star, or that could be a black hole, or it could be something that rips them out of cloaking, because of course the Klingons can cloak. There's special rules for that, where you get these little face-down cloaking tokens, which are pretty cool, saying whether it's the real ship or if it's a sensor echo. And that's pretty much the game. The back of, and again, I didn't go into a whole lot of detail. Hang on, I'm dropping things over here. Didn't go into a whole lot of detail, but you have this fancy little quick reference guide on the back of the book saying what you're allowed to do. You can do 3 actions each turn out of one of these. You can do the same action 3 times, but each ship can only be dedicated to do one thing. One last thing that I haven't touched on is you have your command deck. Now, in the base game, and actually I think all the expansions, you have 10 decks consisting of 10 cards. They're little mini decks like this big. And you get to choose 4 of them. You put them together, shuffle them together real good, and then that consists of your command deck. You get a hand of 4 cards, and then every time you play one, you get to draw one back immediately to replace it. And you have things like crew members. We got Reginald Barclay. You got ops cards. Come on. Ops cards and combat cards, and they all do special things. And you can play any number of cards you want through during your turn. However, you can only play 1 card per event, action, whatever you want to call it. So, for example, if I drew Mysterious Abductions, and I needed to play, I didn't read what it did, but let's just say it required me to do a test. I could play as an interrupt. As long as I have 1 weapon. This probably isn't going to focus. There we go. As long as I have 1 weapon, it gives me +4 sensors. So let's say it was a sensor test. I can go ahead and play this on it, and then adjust my power setting, full power to sensors, because you get 1 per turn per ship to adjust their power. And then I could roll to make sure I passed it. On the other hand, you also get interrupt abilities like this one that can be played during your opponents, but again, still only one. If you're under attack, you get to play one combat card. You and the opponent get to play one. These can be dirty when you get an interrupt. You can play it on your opponent. They're attacking you, and I've won many times from this. They're attacking you. Go, all right. I'm going to play an interrupt. Target ship puts their dial to the dial that has the highest amount of scanners. So you put that on. Now their weapons are not strong enough to actually hurt you, and you've won the combat. And it's really frustrating when it's done to you, but it is so sweet when you do it to a Klingon ship that just pulled themselves out of cloaking to take you down. So let's put this back out here. And again, I mean, there's plenty of different ships. Like you got the original Constitution class Enterprise, and they're basically the exact same thing that's an attack wing. You get all these little chips here to influence actions. Like you get these outposts that you can actually build that allow you to repair. You get victory point tokens just to keep track of spare victory point stuff. You can go under put areas under control, Klingon or Federation. And I mean, overall, it's a very thematic game. You basically are playing out an entire season of Star Trek. The decks for Federation, anyways, because that's primarily what I play. You got like heavy security. Let's see, heavy security, wild space, main engineering, strange new worlds. You have, of course, Kirk and Picard in here. Whole nine yards, and they all do different things. Like you can have Odo. You can assign him as, for example, a crew member, as a specialist, an officer, or a captain, and he gives you +1 to weapons. So, and you assign them to a ship. Last but not least, probably should have mentioned this earlier, the game comes with this handy thing. Because the ships are fairly fragile, this little stick here does not feel very sturdy, which is why I do the paper clips, because having to constantly pick them up and do this, you definitely don't want to hold it from up here, it'll break. But constantly having to do this or hold it from the base and turn it, it just gets annoying. They're kind of fragile. These clicks don't feel very solid. So this comes in very handy, because when you're trying to figure out where the hell all these ships went, this tells you the exact order that they go in. However, I heard that the expansions don't come with them. When I get the expansions, I'll probably review it. But that's Star Trek Fleet Captains. Let's backtrack, actually. There's this book here. It reads pretty well. It has how to set up. This is for just a 10-point game. There's ways to set up larger games, but it goes into pretty decent detail. First game we played, we had a few things that we messed up on, but nothing too bad. But it explains everything pretty well. No real complaints with it. Again, I do highly recommend the paper clips. Also, these cards, I should probably... And I know this review's all over the place. I'm sorry. This was kind of a on the whim kind of review. The one complaint I do have about this game, all of the components, these are just cardstock. They're about half as thick as, like, say, a standard Magic the Gathering card. So if you do pick this game up, I highly, highly recommend sleeving all of them. On top of that, these tiles, the hexes, come on, there we go. These hexes are made of the exact same material. They're not cardboard like the thick cardboard like Eclipse or hell, even these chits. I would have been fine with these, because even these are a little thin, but they're fine. They're very sturdy. If these were made out of this, it'd be perfect. But these are also made out of the same stuff. It's going to cost you, I got a quote yesterday, no, it was today, on how much it's going to cost to laminate these, because I don't have a machine to do it. It'll probably cost me about 30 bucks. However, the game is fantastic. So let's go further into a breakdown of what I think about Star Trek Fleet Captains. Alright, well, Star Trek Fleet Captains. Honestly, I love the game. I've played it, like I said, about 4 or 5 times. I played Federation every time. And I definitely plan on buying the Romulan and the Dominion expansion. The game is very thematic. If you're a fan of Star Trek and you've seen all the shows, we don't talk about anything after Voyager, however. But if you've seen all the shows and the movies, the game is going to make a lot of sense. My cousin that I play with has never seen an episode of Star Trek. He loves the game. The game is very fun for anybody who hasn't seen Star Trek. But if you've seen it,
you're going to get very immersed in the world. You're going to understand those encounters. And when you draw a card and you see Q on it, you haven't even read the card yet. You just see Q on it, and you know shit's about to get real. And the game is fantastic. The stories that you could tell from playing this game are phenomenal. Like the first game we played, I had the USS Enterprise A and the Equinox exploring an uncharted sector of space. They picked up Klingons on long range scanners. They were traveling together as a what is it called? A fighter, no, a task force. That's what it's called. There's special rules for that. Again, I didn't get into a lot of the finer rules or anything like that. But they were traveling as a task force, scanning and charting an uncharted sector of space. Klingons showed up on long-range scanners, so rather than safely scanning a new area of space before they warped into it, they just jumped the gun and warped in because, Klingons. And they wound up warping into a black hole, which did 1 point of damage to both ships, crushing their hull. And the Klingons took advantage of this, warped in, blew up the named USS Enterprise A. The Equinox barely escaped with its life, warped out, managed to repair the local starbase. All the while this was going on, the USS Voyager had received a mission from Starfleet Command to test out a new transwarp drive where they had to travel at maximum engines for 4 consecutive turns. Thus, when I completed that, it won me the game. And it's stuff like that. It's just the events that pop up and how they happen. And if you're playing with 2 people who know the show, you can just come up. You're basically making an entire season of Star Trek. It's really fun. However, the game is about $80. So it's a bit pricey, especially because the components are kind of cheap. I do need to paint mine, as you saw. The detail's not bad. I don't know if the camera actually picked them up or not, but detail's not bad. Paint the ships, laminate everything, and sleeve all the cards. And this game is a must-have for any Star Trek fan. I cannot give it enough praise. I bought it, and first 2 times I played it, I was like, this is totally in my top 5 favorite games. And I didn't know if maybe that was just because it's new and I liked it a lot. I played it a few more times. I stand fast, it's probably my 3rd favorite game. It goes BattleCon, Eclipse, and then this. But this Star Trek might actually be tied with Eclipse. I'll have to do a review for that one sometime. I know this review is kind of all over the place. Sorry for this crappy camera. I really hate this camera. I bought it on a whim, and I don't even know what the hell happened to my other one. It's in this house somewhere. Hopefully soon I'll be able to pick up a better camera, and I'll be able to start pumping out more board game reviews. Next time I'm going to use my phone until then. Anyways, if you guys could give a like, comment, and subscribe, share the video, and I will see you guys next time in the quarantine.